Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I've got Dr. Perpetua Neo here with me. She's a clinical psychologist, she's a leadership coach, and the author of the book, This Is What Matters. All right. Today, um, I've got the pleasure of having her here to talk about a topic which I feel affects a lot of people, and that is about toxic relationships. All right. So, Dr. Neo, thank you so much for being here with us today to share your insights on this matter, which, in my opinion, affects a lot of people.
Thank you so much for having me here, Jit. I am so glad to be able to talk about this topic that is so quiet, so full of shame, and yet so important because we need to know way more about this to get out of situations that we should not be in.
So, Dr. Neo, what exactly do we mean when we say toxic relationship, and how is it different from a healthy relationship?
So that's a great question because a lot of people often very quickly say something is toxic, right? But when a relationship is toxic, what we mean is that this relationship is net negative. So there are way more negative experiences, and very importantly, it's engineered to break you and to hurt you and to get something out of you. So imagine, most people in healthy or benign, functional relationships come together. It is not with this intention of deliberately creating chaos in your life for their own pleasure or for their own gain. But a toxic relationship is like that. It's engineered to basically hurt you, and more often than not, the majority of toxic relationships are with a dark personality type. And what we mean are the people who are narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, and Machiavellians.
So, when you say like a toxic relationship is engineered, right, to be a net negative,
Yeah.
but can a relationship start as a net positive first and then become toxic along the way?
Oh, they always start as net positive. In fact, they always start as net incredibly positive.
Okay.
So it always starts this way. There's this thing called the love bomb. It's the first stage, right? When somebody smothers you with affection and attention. So smothering, literally means you got no time to breathe, no time to think. All you are is with this person who tells you you're the most amazing person in this world. You're their soulmate very quickly.
Okay.
And they kind of almost suffocate you with this affection and compliments, right? And I've never met anyone like you. Have you? You might be my best friend. Nobody understands me the way you do. You're so amazing. And because there's no space for you to think or to reflect on a situation, you just get so swept away and you kind of lose yourself. And this sets the stage for the rest of the relationship because it started out positive.
Okay.
And when it goes bad, when it goes south and really, really, really south, you are thinking, it's actually been good before, it's been great before. So whose fault is it? My fault.
But what then if it's a scenario where it's real, it's genuine, if someone is saying it? Should we always be worried if someone tells us like, hey, you know what, you're my soulmate, or we tell that?
Well, within the first 5 days or the first 2 months,
Okay.
it's a bit strange, right?
Right.
If someone's telling you I love you from the second hour,
Okay.
then I think that's when we have to be wary. So in this case, what I often tell people is when somebody tries to accelerate intimacy,
Okay.
that's when you should be careful. That doesn't mean you get suspicious of everybody in life, okay? Because some friendships form very, very fast. Some relationships form fast, right? And intentions may be good, but in this situation, they form quickly and often without basis.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So many people might be in a toxic relationship even without realizing that they are in one. So, what are some clear-cut signs or behaviors that can indicate to us that we might be in a toxic relationship?
So in a toxic relationship, what happens is that you're often gaslighted. So have you ever heard of that movie, the black and white movie called Gaslight?
I don't think I have.
So
but I'm going to watch it now.
You should really watch it. So, you see gaslights all over Europe where the
Okay.
lights are literally filled with gas to turn on and off.
Okay.
So this woman is in a house where the lights keep turning on and off
Okay.
for no reason. And then her husband keeps telling her, you're mad. And what
Okay.
happens is when somebody keeps telling you you're mad, they they definitely screw you with a sense of reality. So you don't trust yourself. So when you don't trust yourself, who do you trust next, right? You trust the person whom you think has your back, but in this case doesn't have your back. So I know there's a lot of stuff on TikTok these days about gaslighting, and everybody just goes, oh, you're gaslighting me, oh, he's
Okay.
gaslighting you, he's toxic.
And that's a new term. I've not heard of that,
Oh,
but
okay.
I think I must
So,
be out of touch.
well, now we have just...
I got to step up my TikTok game.
So basically what happens then, right, is that so when somebody gaslights you, they are deliberately doing that to lie to you. You know, people have white lies, people accidentally look like they're lying, but if that's not intentional over a period of time to make you doubt yourself and to trust them instead, then that's not gaslighting.
Okay. So that is one of the signs. Is there
Yes.
any other signs
So-
that we should look out for?
Okay, so another big cue is abuse. And abuse doesn't always require scars and marks. In fact, you know, many times, especially when you're with somebody sophisticated, then what happens is the physical abuse can come really, really late when they're feeling like they're losing control of you. So abuse often includes emotional abuse. When
Okay.
somebody devalues you, after that love bomb phase, they make you feel like crap about the person that you are. So you're so stupid, why can't you be like your friends? Or why can't you be like this person? Everybody hates you. And this is meant to make you feel small about yourself and and basically shoulder all the burden and the blame, so that no matter what, you're always on eggshells. You're always wondering, what did I do? Or what did I not do? Or what did I accidentally do to trigger this person to be upset with me, to be paranoid, to be jealous, or to be angry? So either way, whatever happens is like you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And that puts somebody in a position where they're always watching their behavior and blaming themselves, which is perfect for the abuser to keep abusing you. So essentially, over time, your standards drop. Your boundaries, which are your hell nos, drop even further. And you're so exhausted, your brain and your body, your nervous system essentially, are literally just beat. And most of the time what happens then is, if you're going through a neutral situation in life that most people go boring, let's say I'm just sitting on a couch or I'm hanging out with my friend, it's considered boring to your nervous system. So your nervous system literally goes like, boop. And in times of abuse, it wakes up. And guess what? It thinks this is love.
So that itself becomes like a vicious cycle, right? In a way, because
Absolutely.
you're feeding off
Yeah.
the toxicity
Yeah.
to feel good.
Yeah, and the things that your brain and your body are literally rigged against you, keeping you in this situation. And the reason why that's happening is because your brain doesn't care about you being happy, doesn't care about you thriving, doing well in life, or whatever. Your brain needs you to survive. And your brain knows that in a situation like this, it is so dangerous. So all it has to do is to keep you alive. So it blunts your nervous system during all other times, except when there's danger.
Right. Dr. Neo,
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're talking about relationships and we're looking at it from a partner perspective,
Yeah.
right? But a toxic relationship goes beyond just like two people being in love, being partners, being in a relationship. Like it goes beyond that, right? It could be any form of relationship for that matter.
Yeah. So people come to me because of toxic friendships, because they have a toxic boss or a toxic co-worker. And we're talking about, say, high-performing leaders who spend good money out of their own pocket
Yep.
because they've had it with working within toxic work dynamics that makes them forget why they like their job in the first place. They get so exhausted and they want to just wake up the spark within them. And apart from that, you know, their brains are always in that state where it's incredibly chaotic, like there's a tsunami in their head, and they're always doubting themselves. And you know, you start seeing things like panic attacks happening as well. And that's often your body's cue that you are not safe, you're in danger, you need to leave, somebody is going to hurt you. And then of course we have toxic family dynamics,
Yep.
because that's often how the narcissist or the psychopath is born. There's a big genetic component, and then there's a big component where they're socialized and nurtured into becoming great at what they
Okay.
do, right?
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you know, like they pick their partners in a certain way. So they often pick their partners
Yeah.
where partners often come from a family background, may not be a direct family background, okay, or where there's been bullying, when there's toxicity. And so I get clients who come to me because they have to leave a narcissistic family of origin safely, or a narcissistic mother-in-law. So it goes on and on and on.
Yep.
But you're
So
right.
pretty much
Yeah.
any form of relationship can be a toxic relationship.
Definitely. As long as you have a toxic person, you can have a toxic relationship.
That makes
Most-
sense.
That's part of the equation.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Dr. Neo, I know that you have a background. You are a clinical psychologist. You're also a leadership coach. You know, but is being in a toxic relationship also something that you have experienced yourself in life?
Definitely, and it's something that I've written extensively on, especially on this New York publishing website,
Yep.
health website called Mind Body Green. So when I was in my 20s and I was training in the UK, I was a foreign student, kind of alone-ish, you know, not knowing a lot of things about my life. There was this man in my life. He was very, very charming, and he was very, very persuasive. He was older than me, and at a point in time, for most of my life, I was very socially awkward, didn't know a lot about myself. So I kind of outsourced authority and let other people make some bigger decisions for me, especially if I trusted them. So let's say, you know, I don't know you, I can be really tough with you, you know, in my boundaries. But if I like you enough, you're my family member, you're somebody I trust and love, I let you call the shots because it's just easier on my brain. But then what happened was I didn't realize until much later that he is a narcissist and a psychopath. And then one day, when I was preparing to leave, I went to the shelter, the women's shelter, and the policewoman there did an assessment for me. And she said, after I played down everything she said, you have to leave soon. I was like, oh, why? In my heart, I was already planning to leave, right?
Yep.
And she said, because this inventory tells us that you're at medium risk of severe harm or homicide.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, it's played down.
Yep.
Oh, no. And so I had to accelerate me leaving, and I did.
Yeah, thank you so much for being, you know, so open to share about this. And the reason I asked this is simply because I think being in a toxic relationship and having those effects on our mental and emotional well-being can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times I think we like to think that it may not happen to us, but the reality
absolutely.
is it can happen to the best of us. It can happen to anyone, and knowing how to identify, knowing how to get out of it, I think is of utmost importance. And that's actually the next part of this interview that I want to ask you.
Right.
But before that, right, what are the emotional, right, and mental well-being that's at stake if we are in a toxic relationship? And what are the long-term consequences if we continue to stay in a toxic relationship?
So you'll find yourself incredibly anxious because you're always blaming yourself. You're always walking on eggshells. Like, okay, if I do this or if I didn't do this, am I going to trigger this person? And if I am upset or sad, like, you know, when I was upset after a paranoid night from him, and I went out to, because I was in such pain I couldn't move, I went to the masseuse, having to pay £80, a lot of money, for a 1 hour massage, which I wouldn't do normally. And I would come back and he would say, where do you go out to? And I said, a massage. I went and bring my receipt, okay?
Oh, wow.
And then he says, why? Why would you have to pay for a massage? Because my body's in such great pain, I couldn't move. I actually had to not show up for work today. And then he says, oh, so you're saying that I made you in pain. Now you're making me sad. So whatever I did, I could never win.
It's a double-edged sword all the time,
Totally.
right?
So, you know, like, when you're always walking on eggshells, your body is in a state of discomfort. Your body is literally wrecked, okay? And your gut is so disconnected from you that you don't know how to make your own decisions at times. So when you translate that to a professional setting, let's say, you know, if you've got a great workplace where you're very confident of how good you are at work, great. You know, often my clients, like my doctors, my CEOs, my lawyers, they are often really good at their work, so they're able to disconnect that. Thank God, okay? But so somebody who is unable to disconnect that, or they are also in their workplace with toxic co-workers and bosses, because it's a house of mirrors often, then bam, their performance goes all the way down. And then we're also talking about high functioning depression. So there's a low mood that happens as a result of you being in such a relationship. So low mood isn't just about being sad, it's about being numb, unable to feel joy and happiness. You don't want to do a lot of things. You might do things that self-sabotage, and that again feeds into the vicious cycle where you don't feel good about yourself. And the narcissist loves to isolate you from your friends and your family. So imagine when you're isolated, what's going to happen? You're going to have elevated loneliness. And if you're isolated for too long, let's say some people, they're convinced not to work anymore, just stay at home, don't go out. And sometimes this convincing, this persuasion is not even direct. It's somebody throwing a tantrum or a jealous fit after you go out. So your brain learns to associate going out with is not safe. Then you don't go out. But over time, when you're too lonely, when you're too isolated, you know what happens to your brain? So imagine you haven't gone out in 6 months, right?
Okay.
You went to a cave and you're not in a good headspace. Then you see my face like that, benign. I have no bad intentions,
Yep.
just neutral intentions, okay? Like I don't even notice you, right? But you know what your brain will see? Your brain will say, she is out to get me. Your brain will start interpreting benign expressions as threatening expressions. And tell me, can that be good for your mental health?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Despite knowing the signs and despite recognizing the signs, people still sometimes find it really hard to leave a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
What could be the psychological factors that keep people trapped in situations like this?
Besides the fact that your brain and your body are wired against you to stay in that relationship because it knows how dangerous it is when you leave. In fact, the most dangerous time is when you leave. What other factors would be because it's ever been good, and there are spikes when it's good, but because there are positive interactions, then what happens is you as the partner start to think, oh, it's not that bad. So the human brain is designed to remember negative things. It's designed to avoid losses. But in a toxic relationship with a toxic partner, what happens is you instead tend to play down negative stuff and play up positive stuff.
Okay.
So this again keeps a person trapped. And now of course, there's very practical factors, right? Like not just the fact that a narcissist might feed you too much and change the way you look, or not let you dress up, and you just become a shadow of yourselves. And then they'll keep telling you, you're too old, you're too fat, you're too ugly, nobody ever like you. See, I like you. See, you are so lucky to have me. But practical things like, some narcissists force their partners after marriage or after having kids to stop their work, to stay at home, and take all their money away. So there's a big element also of financial abuse and subordination. So you're under the thumb. The longer you are away from what we call the real world, the harder it is to think about how I'm going to go back to a job, right? How am I going to even afford the practicalities of my dog or my kids having food?
Yep.
And this is what keeps a lot of women and men trapped in a relationship like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said and men too, because I think it goes both ways, right? There are a lot of men who are also in toxic relationship. I mean, I maybe over the years, maybe it could be skewed more towards women who are experiencing it than men. I don't know what the numbers
I think
are.
women are talking a bit more about this. It feels more normalized.
Yeah.
But whether you are a homosexual or heterosexual man, I had clients come to me for that because narcissists exist in all shapes.
In all shapes and all forms.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
Yeah, that's very true. So, for someone, right, who realizes that they're in a toxic relationship and they want to break free, right? So, what are some steps that they can take, right, to safely and effectively break free from this relationship?
So, a really important thing is to do it in secret.
Okay.
Yeah. So, let's say you're in a foreign country or whatever else, you've got a lot of logistical loose ends to tie up, then get your documentation in secret. Whatever it is, you have to make sure that he doesn't or she doesn't know that you are going to leave. Because at the point when you're about to leave, that's the most dangerous part of your life. They know they get threatened, they may hurt you, they may harm you, they may kill you. So you have to be super careful in that sense. Another thing is to be very aware that your brain and your body are rigged against you. So again, dismiss any good stuff as just something you're going to pay for incredibly dearly and expect bad behavior. Don't get thrown off. When people see like, oh, he or she just treated me this way, oh, I'm so lost, I'm so broken, and you know what, it's tough love. Expect that bad behavior, because when you expect it, you don't feel shocked, you don't feel betrayed, you get up just like that. And if you've been isolated, seek support and make sure that in your house of mirrors, you don't get you get really aware of identifying the friends in your life or the family members in your life who are equally toxic, who will say shit like, oh, I knew this person was bad. I'm psychic. And how does that help? Not
Yep.
at all, right? Or people who just want to make noise and talk nonsense. So the people you trust, even if you've been a bit isolated from them, call them back, be a bit brave, be a bit thick-skinned, and say, hey, I was in a bad space, and I now know, and I really would like to connect again. And also remember that when you're starting to leave and you're starting to seek help from people, you cannot just keep talking about the same crap over and over again, because your friends are going to get tired.
Okay.
And there's going to be expiry dates of how much help you can seek. So you have to be very aware that once you activate that
Yep.
support, people only have this much patience for you. Otherwise, you're going to sabotage yourself.
Yep. So once someone leaves a toxic relationship, all right, and they're on the path towards healing, healing itself can be a challenging
Yeah.
journey. So what would your advice be for someone to rebuild their self-esteem and their mental health again?
So do small things that bring you joy, and do small things that the version of you in a bad relationship would have dismissed as boring, because you're trying to condition your nervous system. You're trying to teach it again to actually like benign, boring things. Okay? So, for some of them, even if they used to love reading, they may stop reading because it becomes boring to their nervous system. So sit through these boring little things, go and garden, go and read, go and sit in a cafe and just do these things to retrain your brain and your body, because you have this body and sometimes you cannot fight biology. You have to, and so that is a big step. And reclaim the parts of you that was taken away. So for some of my clients, it can be so simple as, they're telling me like, I've lost myself, I don't look good anymore, my face is sagging. So if you cannot afford to allow yourself to go to the doctor, even if you have a lot of money, then what you do is I say, your lips are cracking, go put on lip balm. Next week, put on lip gloss. Next week, wear this dress you've forgotten or you don't let yourself wear. So when you take those baby steps, you start to shine. And when you start to shine, everything feels a lot easier, and it's totally not superficial, because, you look at the person you see in the mirror, you gotta like that person.
Yep. And I suppose seeking help and talking to a professional is a
Yes.
very important part,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Especially if you've been in a toxic relationship for a long time,
Yeah.
and you're coming out of it,
Yeah.
professional help is important.
So here what we're talking about is essentially, we're not just treating the anxiety and depression and the different variants of all the things that you're suffering from. We're also talking about treating trauma. And most people think that trauma is just, oh, I can talk it away. If I can tell someone my story, I'm okay. No, you're not okay. You're still taken by the demons of your trauma.
Yep.
Okay? And trauma is stored in your body. So you have to make sure that you have somebody who can treat and help you to lift the trauma from your body, so that your capacity to receive good things in life, pleasures and joys, increases.
Right. So Dr. Neo, my last question for you today is this, right? If we see a friend or a family member who is in a toxic relationship, how can we give them the support that they need without making them feel pressured or judged?
Believe them. Because so often, so many of them are not believed. Like, oh, your partner, oh my gosh, he's the best person in the world. Oh, when I stayed over, he made me breakfast, because they're so charming, right?
Yep.
So believe them. Don't make it about them, because let's say a toxic friend or toxic relative or somebody who doesn't know better may tell the victim, oh, I think it's your fault. You're not doing enough. You deserve it. Believe them, because that's the first step, because they're already finding it so hard to even trust themselves that they're not too sensitive, they're not too crazy after an incident. So help them through with this first step of believing them and
Yep.
saying, what do you want? What can I help you with?
Yep.
And that will make all the difference.
Awesome. Dr. Neo, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been amazing talking to you, and I think it's been so insightful. I mean, as I've mentioned, toxic relationship, we've heard it, we've seen it, but do we really understand it, and do we really have the tools needed to break away from it if we are in one? All right. So I hope today's interview with Dr. Neo shed some light on this very delicate yet important topic. Do check out Dr. Neo's stuff. She writes a lot online. I think if you just Google her name, you'll find all kinds of resources that Dr. Neo has put up. Check out this book as well. I'm looking forward to reading this book. Dr. Neo, thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Jit.